Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Dev, all glories to the assembled Vaishnavi devotees, and all glories to our revered speaker, Her Grace MALATI DEVI. Hare Krishna, Mother, thank you so much for being here again.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mother. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Please
so you
go
were
ahead.
saying, all glories to this, that. You said all glories to Srila Guru Dev, but which Guru Dev?
That is a good question. Guru Dev, I meant every bona fide guru in our precious organization.
Yeah, then that's what you should say. It's just it was interesting because today I was having a conversation with somebody about this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the devotees are singing Jai Guru Dev during Prabhupada's Guru Puja. None of them are his disciples. So I said, this is Prabhupada's Guru Dev. Which Guru Dev are you chanting about? You know, he's not, Prabhupada isn't your Guru Dev. But here's what Prabhupada said. He actually, he didn't, he objected. He said that it's an insertion into our movement from the Sahaja Sampradaya in Bengal. They're always saying things like Jai Guru Dev without referring to any particular guru. So Prabhupada could criticize this as being impersonal. It was impersonal. So, like, if you're going to say Jai Guru Dev, then you have to
mention the name.
Mention the name first. Yes, that's the thing. And then in 72, he wrote Bhavananda, one thing on the invitation card, you have written all glories to our Guru Maharaj. This is impersonal. As soon as we offer obeisances to Guru, the name should be there. So we're strictly personalists. The Hajias, they write glories to Guru. Why are you learning this impersonalism? Who's taught you? Daily, I'm offering obeisances to my Guru by vibrating his real name, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Otherwise, it's impersonal. So, you know, there are so many things within Krishna consciousness. Consciousness is already on the subtle level. And within that subtle level, there's many subtle teachings that we need to be aware of, you know, instructions. Otherwise, we kind of slip into the impersonal aspect and we don't even realize it, you know.
Thank you so much, Mother, for this correction, because, I mean, if we do not have personalities like your humble self guiding us, this is how systems get changed over time. And we do not even realize that we are making such changes. So thank you for the correction. I have heard something like that before, but it's become like a second nature to me, and probably to many other devotees also, to repeat the same thing that Srila Prabhupada has corrected previously. And we all should make a point in that regard and refrain from making such.
When we understand it correctly, it's automatically you're not going to want to do that. Now, among God brothers or God sisters, you may say, "Oh, Guru Dev this, Guru Dev that," because you're among God brothers, God sisters, and you know who you're referring to.
Yes.
But particularly in the public, so many Guru Devs, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, just wanted to bring that.
Thank you so much, Mother, for the correction. Especially like if disciples of a particular guru are having something like Ishtagoshti and they say Guru Dev, it is obvious whom they're referring to. But in such an open gathering with different disciples of different gurus, it doesn't really make sense talking about Guru Dev. Who are you referring to? So thank you so much for the correction. And I hope whoever is listening to this is paying attention, that we don't repeat such mistakes again.
We try anyway. But
Yes,
for
yes.
me, because I was, from my beginning years in Krishna consciousness, this was, you know, in my mind because I heard it. But
Yeah,
it seems like sometimes people don't want to hear.
yeah.
You tell
Oh
them
no,
something,
here
they don't want to
we
hear.
want to hear. We definitely want to hear because we want to do the right thing to attract the Lord's mercy.
Yeah, and
That's the
also
only
to
thing.
attract our Guru's mercy.
Yes, to attract the Guru's mercy. Yes.
So
Yes.
shall
Thank
we
you so
start?
much.
Shall we start?
Yes. So of course, devotees, our revered speaker today needs no introduction. She's been so kind to us by sharing her wisdom and love with us for so long. Even most times when she is kind of inconvenient, she still tries to make time with us. So, Mother, we can't thank you enough for your constant visitation to us and sharing your love with us. So, with that being said, Sri Prabhupada has already chanted the Jai Radha Madhava, which is
Yes,
a clearance for us to hear the Bhagavatam. But like Sri
yes.
Prabhupada will say, uh, listen attentively. So we urge devotees to try to listen attentively. If we don't listen attentively, we will not hear.
I,
So we're going to put the verse on the screen, and Martha, you take it over from here. Hare
okay.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate. Everybody can say this, the invocation. Om Namo
Om
Bhagavate
Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om
Bhagavate
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 2:10:36. Can we go to the word by word and the transliteration? Can you move it up a little bit? So I'm going to say the synonyms. I'll say that first. So then when when we hear the verse, we have an idea. Sa, he, vachya, by his forms and activities. Vachakatya, by his transcendental qualities and entourage. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Brahma, absolute. Rupadrik, by accepting visible forms. Nama, name. Rupa, form. Kriya, pastimes. Datte, accepts. Sa, karma, engaged in work. Akarmaka, without being affected. Para, transcendence. So we can go back to the verse, um, to the Sanskrit part. Okay, here we go. Savachava Savachyavakayataya Bhagavan Brahmarupa Drik Namarupa Kriyadatte Sakarma Karma Para. So the translation, he, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is unaffected by all such activities, he appears to be so engaged. Purport. Whenever there is a need of material creation, the transcendental personality of Godhead accepts forms in the material world for creation, maintenance, and destruction. One should be intelligent enough to know his activities in truth and not be biased to conclude that he descended to the material world by accepting a form created by material nature. Any form from the material nature has its affection for everything done in the material world. A conditioned soul who accepts a material form for undergoing a certain term of material activities is subjected to the laws of nature matter. But here in this verse, It is clearly stated that although the forms and activities of the Lord appear to be the same as those of a conditioned soul, they are supernatural and impossible for the conditioned soul. He, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by such activities. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:14, the Lord says, Namam karmani lipante, name karma pale spriha, itimam yo bijannati, karmabir nasa vidyate. The Lord is never affected by the activities which he apparently performs by his different incarnations and personalities, nor does he have any desire to achieve success by fruitive activities. The Lord is full by his different potencies of wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, and thus he has no reason for physical exertion like the conditioned soul. Therefore, an intelligent person who can distinguish between the transcendental activities of the Lord and the activities of the conditioned soul is also not bound by the reactions of activities. The Lord, as Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, conducts the three modes of material nature. From Vishnu is born Brahma, and from Brahma is born Shiva. Sometimes Brahma is a separated part of Vishnu, and here's something really interesting, and sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself. Thus, Brahma creates the different species of life all over the universe, which means that the Lord creates the whole manifestations either by himself or through the agency of his authorized deputies. Come back to the translation, please. Yeah. So again, you can speak out loud yourself altogether. He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, quality, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is unaffected by all such activities, he appears to be so engaged. So can we move it? I want to see the purport again. I'm sorry, because I don't have it with. Maybe I can look on my phone.
It's back on the screen, Mother.
Okay. Yeah. So move up a bit. Move it up a bit. So, I mean, this is really an astounding statement. Move it up a bit. Move it up. So here in this, it's an astounding statement that sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself. So we're always considering Brahma, he's a separated part of Vishnu. He originates from Mahavishnu, the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. But here we learn sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself. I was looking all over to try to find some example of this, a further explanation. And within Prabhupada's books, and maybe it's there and I don't know how to look for it. I found an explanation that comes from Samayavadi, so I didn't even want, confuse my brain by their confusion. So I'm going to start by asking all of you, does anybody know anything about this, that sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself? We know that sometimes Vishnu becomes Brahma when there's no suitable candidate. So maybe that's what they're referring to. But here it says Brahma is a separated part of Vishnu, and sometimes Brahma is Vishnu himself. So anybody have anything to say about this amazing statement?
Well, Hare Krishna, Mother, just as you were saying, what I have heard and read also is that the position of Lord Brahman is uh, is dependent on virtues and religiosity
Oh
that
gosh,
a Jiva Atma might have accrued. And once someone has been able to accrue such credits, then he is risen to the position of being Brahman. But if there is no such an individual, then the Lord himself, Lord Vishnu, assumes that position as Lord
yeah.
Brahman.
I mean, I'm assuming, as you have expressed also, but somehow here it's saying sometimes Brahma is Vishnu. We know sometimes Vishnu becomes Brahma, but the way it's presented here is kind of curious. That's why I kind of brought it up. At any rate,
Yeah, I think Srila Prabhupada said that, which is, in other words, Vishnu himself becomes Brahman.
yeah, but here
The way it is
anyway,
written.
it was just kind of curious, and I thought at first I'm just taking it as you said, and then I thought, well, mate, but it's saying this, and I'm trying to find that, and like I said, the only I got an explanation, but it was by this, total Mayavadi rascal, and when I read some of his other things, I thought I am not going to get my brain screwed up by this fellow. Okay, anybody else have anything they want to say about that?
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay. If we look at the beginning of the purpose,
Yeah.
that explanation that wherever there is need for material creation, the transcendental personality of God, yeah, okay. Whenever there is need of material creation, the transcendental personality of God has set forms in the form of material world for creation, maintenance, and destruction. So maybe he became Lord Brahma, Vishnu, and Lord Shiva. Maybe
Yes.
that's what that.
Anyways,
I think
one thing what is always clear is Krishna is always way beyond our limited comprehension.
Mm.
And sometimes just like this is just a very small sentence, but it just was like, wait a minute, what is this? And and before that, Prabhupada was, therefore, an intelligent person who can distinguish between the transcendental activities of the Lord and activities of the conditioned soul isn't bound by the reactions of activities. So, I mean, the conditioned souls, we're caught up by reactions. And the fact is also Brahma is a conditioned soul, but his conditioning is on another level. It's like when Bhakti True Maharaj joined, it was very late in Prabhupada's manifested presence, right? And he joins, and Prabhupada's now getting ready to leave the planet, and he initiates him first and second, and then he's going to give him sannyas. And the devotees were very concerned about the sannyas part because we don't know him, so he's only been a short time. Prabhupada, who can see everything quite spectacularly clearly, looked up and he goes, "Don't worry. If he falls down, it will be to the mode of goodness."
Wow.
So sometimes due to our limited level of advancement, even a very advanced person, but still when stacked up against like a Lord Rama, for example, okay, he's a conditioned soul. His conditioning is so less compared to ours that we're thinking we're almost like thinking, oh look, he went after his daughter, and ready to condemn him, subtly or even more not subtly, forgetting what Prabhupada explained that he goes that that was something for us to understand about ourselves, that we can't put ourselves in any risky position. If such a great personality can be bewildered, what about us? You know. So his bewilderment was on a hugely different, different level. But from what I can understand, the material birth and death, that only applies to the jivas. And if Krishna himself plays the role of Brahma, then obviously there's no question of birth or death. Sambhavamiyatma mayaya. Krishna is never born. He appears according to his own will. And that also means if he wants to become Brahma, or he feels there's a need that he has to take that post, he's still not going to be affected. He has the post, but he doesn't have the downside. So, we're in a universe where our Brahma is actually a jiva, but again, not an ordinary jiva. Prabhupada used to say, so now you qualify yourself to see Krishna face to face. And then if you still have all these questions, when you're a pure devotee and you see Krishna face to face, you can ask him directly. And then in another situation, Harikesh was serving Srila Prabhupada. So he had some questions about Lord Brahma. And Prabhupada explained that he explained he'd read in the Bhagavatam that every living entity upon leaving the spiritual world first falls to the level of Brahma. Have any of you heard this and been concerned? How can that be? First of all, the issue.
Yes. In fact, we read it on this platform, but I can't think of the verse, but we read it here. Yes.
Right. So you fall to the level of Brahma. Imagine, so just like Bhakti True, he would fall to the mode of goodness. So Harikesh is wondering, well, does that mean each jiva becomes a Lord Brahma in charge of his own universe? Or has some devotee misinterpreted that he falls to the planet Brahmaloka? But Prabhupada confirmed each living entity being, and you become a Lord Brahma. So Hari Sari was incredulous and he was trying to grasp this like totally inconceivable fact. So he's like, but does that mean each and every living being has its own universe? And then Prabhupada responded rather sharply, oh, Srimad Bhagavatam is wrong. You do not think it possible for Krishna to give everyone his own universe? For Krishna, everything is possible. So even the impossible for us is possible for Krishna, including giving us our own universe. And then there's this statement at the end of the universe, Lord Brahma, as a pure devotee and the head of our spiritual lineage, goes back to Godhead. But Prabhupada, so they were questioning that if he's like a conditioned soul. Prabhupada said it doesn't happen to every Brahma, because each universe has its own Brahma. So, so many Brahmas there are. So not every Brahma will immediately go back to Godhead at the end of his particular post time. It's for a certain time. So the living beings begin their entanglement in the material life from that status, and then they fall further down as the material desires increase. So and then there was another conversation. Tamal Krishna was questioning. He said, I've always been confused as to, like, there's a pure devotee like Haridas Thakur would not fall victim to Maya's temptation, but even Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva might fall victim. So he was confused about that, How could somebody here with his feet on the planet become victimized by Maya and maybe even fall? And so, he's saying, I always thought they were pure devotees. And Prabhupada said, no, they are pure devotees, but they are guna avatar. Just like Lord Brahma is the supreme personality within this material universe, He's the father of all living entities. So, of course, if we scrutinizingly study, Haridas Thakur is in devotional service. He's actually in a greater position than Lord Brahma, although he's considered an incarnation of Brahma, like Brahma Haridas. So we shouldn't be disturbed when we see Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva captivated in that way. We should take this instruction that that is Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva become victim of Maya sometimes. What to speak of us? Therefore, we should be very, very careful. There's a chance to fall down even in the status of Brahma and Shiva. What to speak of the ordinary persons? So therefore, we should be very strongly inclined, very firmly convinced towards Krishna consciousness, just like Haridas. And thus we'll be able to easily overcome the allurement of Maya. So that's to be understood, not that Brahma showed that, oh, he fell down, what's that called, weakness, looking, no, that was for our instruction. And so anyway, that was like an interesting point. And then in 7.3.28 Bhagavatam, so the verse translation, I offer my obeisances to the original personality within this universe, Lord Brahma, who is cognizant and who can apply his mind and realize the intelligence in creating this cosmic manifestation. It is because of his activities that everything within the universe is visible. He is therefore the cause of all manifestations. So, get my notes here. Yeah, so then in the purport, you can see it, he just put that up. The Vedanta Sutra, I'm not going to read every detail from it, but the Vedanta Sutra begins by declaring that the absolute person is the original source of all creation. Bhagavatam 1:1, Janmadhyasya Yata. So one may ask, whether Lord Brahma is the supreme absolute person. And Prabhupada's answering, no. Supreme absolute person is Krishna. Lord Brahma receives his mind, intelligence, materials, and everything else from Krishna. And thus he becomes the secondary creator, the engineer of this universe. So even though for us he is the supreme person of our universe in terms of being that he created it, his creating was not done single-handedly on his own in a vacuum. The first created being, Brahma, who is endowed with perfect knowledge and intelligence by the Lord. So it's stated in the Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hridayaya Likavaya. Although Brahma is the first created being, he's not independent, for he receives help from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his heart. Tene Brahma Hriday, through the heart. So there is not one Brahma at the time of creation. There is no one but Brahma. And therefore he receives his intelligence directly from the Lord through his heart. And that was discussed in the beginning. So then goes on to say, he's described in this verse as the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, Lord Brahma, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. And this applies to his position in the material world. And there are many, many such controllers, all of whom were created by the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And then it gives an example that's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Lord Krishna invited our Lord Brahma to Dwarka. And at this point, Brahma's mindset that he was the only Brahma. So he comes there, and the gatekeepers tell Krishna, Brahma's at the door. And Krishna inquires, which Brahma is here? And Lord Brahma was surprised. He replied, Of course, Lord Brahma, the father of Lord of the four Kumars. That's me. I'm waiting at the door. And so then he was given admittance, but then he asked Krishna, why did you ask which Brahma had come? And then Krishna informed him there were millions of other Brahmas. And if you consider that statement that every conditioned soul who falls down into the level of Brahma, I mean, we might say it's falling upwards, but you get your own universe, and there's millions of souls constantly departing. Then how many millions of universes are there? Unlimited. So then that means there's unlimited Brahmas. So he called all the Brahmas to visit him, so that our Lord Brahma is the Chatramukha Brahma with the four heads. He was at that point when he sees all these other Brahmas, some which had like hundreds of heads, he was suddenly feeling like a tiny insignificant creature in the presence of so many other Brahmas with so many heads. So even though there is a Brahma who's the engineer of each and every universe, it's Lord Krishna who is the original source of all of them. So that is kind of consistently the message about Brahma, about Lord Brahma. And if you don't mind, I would like to talk about a wonderful devotee who we just observed his disappearance day, which was the day before the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev. So I'm speaking about Jayananda.
Yes.
How many of you are familiar with Jayananda Prabhu?
Well, we've heard some things about him. Of course, none of us met him in person. Those of us gathered here, but we've heard so much amazing things about him.
Yeah. So, I mean, due to Srila Prabhupada's instruction, I would like to speak a little something about him, because he said we should observe his disappearance day like we do the other Vaishnavacharyas and saints.
Yeah.
In fact, he's considered the first saint in ISKCON. And it's completely amazing. He passed away on May 1st, 1977, just a few months before Prabhupada's departure. So on May 5th, 5 days later, Srila Prabhupada writes him a letter. So then we can understand he's writing this letter to Jayananda, but it's actually also for us, the instruction to my dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I am feeling very intensely your separation. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution for printing my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you have rendered very favorable service to Krishna in different ways. I so hope at the time of your death you were remembering Krishna, and as such, you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. If not, if you had any tinge of material desire, you have gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods for many thousands of years and enjoy the most opulent light of material existence. So notice this, he's speaking, if you, I hope at your death you were, it's so personal. And then you think about, yes, a relationship with the spiritual master, it's eternal. So that means at the time of death, it is still going on. And if somebody is fortunate enough to be remembering his spiritual master, at the time of death, what to speak of Lord Krishna, that connection is not going to be broken. So this letter, although written after his departure, was at the same time obviously connecting to him. And so Prabhupada is letting him know that, if you had some material desire, here's what you can expect. And then from there, it goes to the celestial kingdom with thousands of years you can enjoy. But then from there, you promote yourself to the spiritual world. And then he gives another point. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time he again comes down to the surface of this globe and takes birth in a very big family, like a yogi or a brahmana or an aristocratic family, where again there is chance of reviving Krishna consciousness. But then Prabhupada gives all these possible scenarios. And then he says, but as you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, I am sure that you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka because he passed during the it was Mangalarti. During Mangalarti, very auspicious time, Kirtan was on, he could hear. And then Prabhupada quotes 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam mevam yo eti tattvatava tattadeham punar janma nayete mameti sarajuna. And then he says something that we should all think about because we've already faced departures of saintly persons who had some type of, malady or the other. And we're saying, don't go, please stay, and we need you, we want. But here's what Prabhupada had to say to Jayananda. It's a beautiful instruction. Krishna has done you a great favor not to continue your diseased body and has given you a suitable place for your service. Thank you very much. So, a very beautiful, instructive, very deep, and something we can consider. So, after his disappearance day, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada instructed devotees all over the world to commemorate the event every year, as they would any great Vaishnav's disappearance day. And it's wonderful because he was like the day before Lord Nrsimha's disappearance. So it's not, it's kind of easily to be able to remember it. So Jayananda, he was what you could kind of call the all-American boy from Ohio. Ohio is like considered the heartland, the heart of America, the heart of it all. He was like handsome, he was strong, intelligent, and he was born into an upper middle class family. He took a degree in mechanical engineering at OSU, Ohio State University, the same place where Srila Prabhupada in 1969 came and chanted and spoke to students and induced them to happily stand and chant and dance. So he had that degree in mechanical engineering, yet he ended up driving a cab in San Francisco. One time, Karandar, who was one of the early pioneers, one of the early pillars, he asked him, why didn't you get a better paying job? And Jayananda, in his humility, which was for him a real thing, I don't fit in with the upper class crowd, he said. He was very introspective by nature, and he felt really empty and unsatisfied during his college years. He'd often mention that he never felt happy before joining the Krishna consciousness movement. And to the point, he had depression. It was almost suicidal. And then in 1967, there was a small article in a San Francisco newspaper about an Indian Swami who had come to the Bay Area to propagate the chanting of the names of God. And Jayananda felt what he described, a ray of hope. He felt a ray of hope when he read that article. And he was thinking, this Swami may have something to offer. And he made up his mind that he was going to attend the lectures. So, our early temples, they were in what we call storefronts for, small They could have been a little gift shop, a little grocery store, a little bakery, whatever. And as such, there would be a kind of large window facing the street. So our second temple, San Francisco, it was one of those storefronts. And one day this taxi cab pulls up and stops. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe somebody's coming to the temple in a taxi. But the driver got out and he's looking through the storefront, through the window. So then Mukunda noticed this and he went outside to invite him in. And immediately he began attending the Sunday feast. And in fact, he wanted to contribute something. So he saw everybody was bringing different things. So he said he would like to bring some cookies. They were called pecan sundaes. Like we would know them as Mexican wedding cookies. And it was small, little round with little dome with powdered sugar. And we were telling, no eggs, no lard, like giving him and so he was bringing those like every Sunday. And then there was a vacancy in the building where Mukunda and Janaki lived. And he got that apartment. And it happened to be that was up the street from myself and Shamsunder. It was on Ashbury Street, part of the famed Haight-Ashbury area, Ashbury Street, across from us. So they were up on, it was Ashbury Street was quite a hill. We were on the beginning, so it wasn't so steep, but theirs was a little steeper. But across the street from us, there was what was known as the Dead House, which is not as morbid as it sounds. There was another a famous band of that era, based in America, based in San Francisco, and they were known as the Grateful Dead. So they all lived together in this house, and the house was known colloquially as the Dead House. So if you said the Dead House, you knew, oh yeah, the Grateful Dead. So that was right across the street from myself and Shamsunder. As an aside, anyway, they had a great big huge stove. And I was in their place and I'm looking at that big huge stove and it had a nice griddle, big griddle. I'm looking and I'm thinking, wow, we could really turn out the chapatis on this thing. So I go, hey, do you think we can borrow this stove? Because they knew we were feeding people. Can we borrow this stove? So they agreed we could borrow this big stove and somehow got it out their door, down the stairs and over to the temple. And then there was like this small hole. There's no way to get it through the door to the back, but there was a small like opening in the wall, which we had to enlarge in. And we got that, big stove there. Years later, when we were in London, we get a phone call and the devotees that were now taking care of the San Francisco temple, he goes, hey, there's some people here from the Dead House and they say they loaned you the stove and now they want it back. So I'm thinking, well, I told him, yeah, it's true. I asked if we could borrow it. So I guess if they want it back, we're going to have to give it. And then what happened was, so then they're looking at the situation because now the hole in the wall had been covered up. That's where the altar was. That's where Prabhupada would sit and speak. Lord Jagannath was above. So they realized, wow, we can't get it out. So they said, well, I guess you got yourself a stove. So that was, anyway. Jayananda always had a very personal feeling like if something was wrong or broken in the temple, especially cars, he would fix it. He wouldn't wait for someone to, like, oh, what are we going to do? And that he would see it, he would take care of it. And he was a can-do person. And Prabhupada understood Jayananda was always behind the scenes, just making it all work out. One time while Prabhupada was lecturing, Jayananda walked in and Prabhupada stops. He goes, oh, the Goswami has arrived. And another time he was asking for him, and he finally got there. And you might think, how could he not be there when Prabhupada was lecturing? But he was always absorbed in doing some very meaningful service for Prabhupada. So he arrived a little late. And when he came in, Prabhupada looked up Jayananda looks just like Lord Chaitanya, big shoulders, big man. Um, so he had donated, he'd gotten his inheritance, $5,000, and he donated it to Srila Prabhupada. And it was the first significant financial donation. I imagine, in the 60s, somebody giving $5,000. It's like was quite substantial, as I mentioned. So initially, Prabhupada refused to accept it. He goes, "No, you'll need some money." And Jayananda just said, I wouldn't know how to use it, but I know you would." So when he said that, Prabhupada accepted it, and that money went towards publishing the first edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Another wonderful aspect about Jayananda, he knew how to attract people to Krishna consciousness with prasadam, the prasadam weapon. So when a new person would come, Jayananda would see to it that he was sumptuously fed. We used to say up to the neck, so he'd feed him up to the neck with prasadam. And Jayananda himself, he would be found honoring very large amounts of prasadam any time of the day or night. And he was like the kind of devotee, he'd come up to you at 10 o'clock at night with some peanut butter halava, and he'd go, "Hey, Prabhu, you just got to check this out." And one other early devotee, Karandar, he was, one of the pillar builders. He was remembering Jayananda preached to him on the first day he went to the temple. And they were working together to prepare a little garden for Srila Prabhupada in the old LA temple. And so Jayananda's talking to him and he goes, things don't always go right in Krishna consciousness. Anybody ever had that experience? Sometimes things don't always go right. So he said, "You just have to keep chanting." So at the time, Purandar, he couldn't imagine how could anything go wrong in Krishna's service. But years later, when he was now involved in admin and so many things, he found himself remembering those profound words. You just have to keep chanting. And he could really appreciate the potency of what Jayananda had told him. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he also has that poem. Whatever you do, just keep chanting. You're chanting with offense, keep chanting, so many things, keep chanting. So the most prominent quality of Jayananda was humility, and it was real. Like every one of us here, we know how to act with humility. Oh, thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu this. We know how to act it out. It was from his heart, real. He was the real deal. He treated everyone as a superior, even new devotees. "Hey, Bhakta Mike, what do you think of this?" Although his service was glorious, he never wanted any glory. He avoided praise like the plague. So devotees quickly found out if they wanted to be around him, they'd better not praise him. Otherwise, he would just get up and leave. He felt himself unworthy. He genuinely had that feeling. He would step aside so others could lead kirtan or give the classes or do the arti. Instead, he'd be fixing the cars, unplugging the toilets, washing dishes, taking out the trash. And another thing for anyone who was around, and this really remarkable quality, he could not criticize anyone. It was just against his nature. Even a devotee did something that warranted criticism, Jayananda wouldn't say anything, or else he just made the mistake look like some little perfectly understandable incident, no big deal. No matter who was giving class or leading kirtan, he would always appreciate. He just never spoke harsh words to anyone. And if there was a devotee criticizing another devotee within earshot of Jayananda, he would just get up and quietly leave and get away from that. So he knew how to encourage others. Temple leaders would always give the new men to him to work with because he'd give the new people the feeling like, I belong here. I want to be part of this. And he was expert at fanning any little fire of Krishna consciousness into a big fire, like a big brother, always compassionate, willing to listen. But actually, the devotees very rarely burdened him with their problems because when they were around Jayananda, it was like you had no problems. Just like Maharaj Yudhisthira had said, Jayananda's enemy was never born. You know. So Jayananda once wrote, when I reflect on my consciousness, had I not had association with devotees and Srila Prabhupada, I shudder to imagine the nightmare I would be in. If we could all become a little dedicated to distributing the mercy, so many could be saved from so much suffering. You know, because of this genuine compassion, Krishna gave Jayananda the unique ability to make people want to serve Krishna, directly or indirectly. And this was particularly apparent during Rath Yatra time. Like, it takes a lot of people to build a Roth cart. And generally, the temples don't have a lot of extra people. He would organize a crew of like cynics, a crew of bloopers, uncooperative personalities, non-devotees off the street, whatever, whoever he could find, and get them to joyfully join him in making a Roth cart. And sometimes these guys just have to sit down for a smoke break, smoke. Jayananda was like, no problem, just, he would he would get them to work 10 hours, 11 hours, 14 hours a day, happily. And he was always glorifying others and working hard himself. In fact, it was said that he worked harder than anyone else. And these qualities made him inspiring to work with. During he was like the backbone of the Bay Area Rath Yatras for years. And his experiences were summed up. In 1977, they had a Rath Yatra edition of Back to Godhead magazine. So behind the scenes, Jayananda was doing everything in preparation for each festival. And of course, the festival begin. One of the first things you have to do for a festival is get the permits, get the permission. He was doing everything in preparation for each festival. And then after the festival, he would personally go to each and every person who did anything at all, who helped in any level, in any capacity. And he would bring them prasadam, cookie prasadam or cakes, you know. And due to his efforts, the devotees in the Bay Area to this day have an amazingly harmonious relationship with the city officials. You know. He was the force behind the very famous 1967 Rath Yatra in New York, the first Rath Yatra down Fifth Avenue, and Srila Prabhupada was present. And he wrote a letter to Keshava, who was the brother of Karandar. He wrote, somehow I got the good fortune to work on New York Rath Yatra. It was such an auspicious opportunity. Prabhupada was coming. There was finally a first-class center in Manhattan, which unfortunately some person thought to sell it, but Prabhupada loved this. He called it our skyscraper building on 55th Street, West 55th. Multiple floors, had a whole theater floor with a proper stage, slanted seating. Anyways, first class center. And Toshan got the permission for Fifth Avenue Parade Route. Another fellow, Jumbavan, was there, a couple boys, and they're just like working so hard for the 3 carts. And Jayananda saying, I was praying that somehow we'd get these carts finished. And somehow, by Krishna's grace, it worked out. But you wouldn't believe some of the scenes. The night before the festival, at about 5 or 6 p.m., we're raising Balaram's dome, the canopy. And when it was at the top, a huge gust of wind caught it and blew the whole thing over. The framework was twisted and busted. The tubing was messed up. I couldn't see how we could rectify the situation because there was so much work left to do on the other two carts. Two devotees appeared who said they were expert builders and they vowed they'd get it back together. So Jayananda said, I had some extra pipes and tubing, and they worked all night. And by Krishna's grace, all three chariots were at Fifth Avenue and 59th Street by 6 a.m. Sunday morning for the parade. So Jayananda said of Srila Prabhupada, I knew he didn't want to cheat me, so I wanted to work for him. In his dealings with Srila Prabhupada, Jayananda kept his usual low profile. He was generally off working somewhere on some project when Prabhupada came to San Francisco. And in other words, he could have been there front and center, but which all the other leaders are doing. But he was preferring to show his love for Prabhupada by being in active service. And by way of reciprocation, Prabhupada would invariably call for Jayananda when he arrived at the temple. Where's Jayananda? And sometimes he would have to make repeated requests until Jayananda was located. And then he would still resist. No, I can't go see him. I'm too dirty. He'd be under the cars, fixing the cars on his back. Although cars are not, the most clean thing in the world to fix, especially back then. And no, I'm too dirty. I mean, he would never buy anything new. Salvation Army, $1 overalls. That was his, he would never get it. He never would wear a new dhoti. He'd find one that somebody discarded. At one time he had on a BBT sweatshirt with a zipper, and he had it on every single day when he was working on the Roth cart. And then that was when Prabhupada was coming there in New York. And so now it was ready. And Prabhupada was coming, and somebody looks at Jayananda, he goes, that sweatshirt is filthy, dirty. And he takes it off and he can see, oh, yeah, it is. He just turned it inside out and put it back on. Anyway, Prabhupada was the core of Jayananda's life. Once Donavir asked him, how does one make spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness? Jayananda's answer, I don't know. I'm too busy working to think about it. So Prabhupada always appreciated Jayananda's sincere service. He wrote him a letter in 1975 with appreciation, and he told him in that letter, I'm so very happy to get your recent letter. I'm always thinking of you and praying to Krishna for your advancement in Krishna consciousness. I remember those old days in San Francisco. They'd been where Krishna was so kind upon me to have sent so many sincere disciples to help me push on the movement on behalf of my Guru Maharaj. You continue with your program here in San Francisco. Always, so here's an instruction that's any place, anywhere. Always strictly keeping our principles, and Krishna will bless you with greater and greater realization of the importance of this movement. I'm dependent upon you, my older disciples, to carry it on. I hope this reads you well. So stick to the principles. Krishna will bless us with greater realization. And when we have greater realization, along comes greater enthusiasm to continue in serving and pushing on the movement. So anyway, it's like 12:04. He also was pushing on the 77 Rath Yatra, LA Rath Yatra, from his bed, from his wheelchair. And it was, he had this diagnosed leukemia and cancer of the lymph glands, and he never fell into self-pity. Like when his old friends would come to see him and they would look at, and he was all withered away, this ghostly appearance. They were finding it hard to talk their way around the condition because he'd been such a big, strong, robust person. But what Jayananda communicated, on the other hand, was complete disinterest in the topic of his health. Instead, he was scheming how to put on Rath Yatra in Los Angeles. You know, he would be sitting in his wheelchair on the lawn and said he looked like death personified, and he couldn't stop thinking and talking about Rathayatra. Jayananda was the epitome of Krishna consciousness, fearlessness of death. You know, and that he passed away while Prabhupada was still on the planet is not insignificant, because in this way, Srila Prabhupada was able to confirm to all of us, everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. So let us offer our humble obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, and to His Grace, Sriman Jayananda Thakur, the contemporary exemplary teacher of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. It's good to hear about maybe, I mean, everybody more or less knows Jayananda, more or less, but not everybody even realized that picture. Who is that person on the front of our Roth carts? What did he do? Like, you don't know about it. We need to know. You know, there is a book, The Glorious Life, or The Beautiful Life of Jayananda Prabhu, you know. But, you know, we have our big devotees. And in his own way, Jayananda was a big devotee, but it was another type of big. It was called the bigness of humility and service, you know. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I have to run to another, I didn't realize I kind of scheduled back to back. So I have to zip on to another Zoom. But forgive my shortcomings, but I hope you take heart in hearing of the life of some of the amazing devotees who helped build this movement and brought us to where we are today.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother Malati, for sharing this all important pastimes of our beloved uncle Jayananda Prabhu with us. Like you rightly said, some of us, if not all of us, see Jayananda Prabhu's photo on the Rathayatra card every year, but some of us may not know much about him as much as you've shared with us today. It is very, very relevant for us to hear about him, for us to understand that it is not just reading about personalities in the scriptures in the bygone years, that it is possible to be saintly in this particular lifetime also, particularly if we dedicate ourselves to serving the Guru and Krishna. Everything.
Can I tell you one more story?
Yes, please go ahead.
So Jayapataka Maharaj was in San Francisco. This is before he became Jayapataka Maharaj, right? And he was actually looking for the devotees. And he saw a poster about Rath Yatra Festival with the temple address. So he went there. And when he got there, he saw a bunch of young men with some shaved heads and sikas working on a wooden structure. And he said, Jayananda welcomed him with enthusiasm. He goes, hey, come on over. We're having a Rath Yatra festival. And the way he made it sound was like the festival was already going on. Actually, it was a festival of building the cart. And all he could see was like 2x4s nailed together. And he says, come on over here. Here, hold this nail. And so he held the nail, and Jayananda's hammering the nail in, and then goes, wow, you held that nail real straight. Are you a professional carpenter? And Maharaj started talking. Sure enough, within minutes, there I was, hammering away, building the Rath Yatra cart with Jayananda. And on the day of Rath Yatra, Jayananda Prabhu shaved him up for the first time.
It's so interesting. I mean, this wealth of information is so encouraging, particularly to myself, because sometimes I wonder if what we read from the scriptures are really applicable to us in this darn age. And here we are, somebody exemplified, and Srila Prabhupada himself named him a saint. So
Yes.
it is possible. It is possible that,
And that's why it's important to hear about these great, not just your own
yeah,
personal Gurudev, but these great souls. There's
yes,
so many out there.
yes,
So I've been taking it upon myself whenever I give a class, as far as possible, to speak about such souls and introduce people to unknown heroes, but not just an unknown hero, a saintly soul within ISKCON.
yes,
They try to give hope. You know.
yeah. Thank you so much, Mother, for doing this service. And like as Mother said, we would have liked to engage Mother more, but she has another engagement, and I believe we all understand that we'll have to let her go attend to the other engagement also.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker and to our revered uncle and probably our great uncle, His Grace Jayananda Prabhu Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Mancha kalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanam Vaishnavabhyo
Namo Namaha.
All
Hari
glories to
Bol.
His Grace Jayananda Prabhu ki Jai, and all glories to His Grace Malati Devi ki Jai. Most assembled Vaishnavas.
All glories to all of you.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.